Greetings, everyone. Greetings and salutations for the day of infamy. This is it. This is the day. Well, we think it's the day, but more than likely today will not be resolved by today. No, today will probably be resolved by sometime in January. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the election. Yes, the election, the selection process. It is whittled down. Well, it's begun. The first poll that opens, I believe, is at 6:30 a.m. There's a host of states that open, I believe, at 6:30 a.m. And I know that one of them is Maine, which is the northeasternmost state in the union. So Maine is open for business. It's been a real adventure in voting, hasn't it? For those of you who have been out there and cast your vote early, waiting on pins and needles, hoping beyond hope that somebody decided to keep your ballot in the mix or not. Hey, come on up here. Come on. What a world we live in. All right, let's see who's in the house. DJ MC, my man, Michael. Checking in from Contra Costa County. Barbara Boots, Double B. Joe Rogan endorsed Trump, saying Elon made the most compelling case. He had Donald Trump on for 3 fucking hours, and that wasn't enough. He had to have Elon Musk spread the mayo on the Trump sandwich. Is that what he had to do? You don't think that Elon Musk could have visited Joe Rogan at some point in time, since they both happen to live in the same city, and fired up a couple of spliffies and had a meaningful conversation about Donald Trump before yesterday? Sometimes these things just don't make a lot of sense. You know what Joe Rogan is really saying? He's really saying it's about a day before the election. I can come out and fully endorse Trump without having to put up with 3 months worth of backlash to Spotify. That's what Joe Rogan did. He's a very clever boy, that Joe. Very clever. It's a circle jerk. You all can have my share. This country is a joke. I'm sorry for my service. Have a parade for that. All right. There's a lot about the country to not be happy about or proud of. And it's what you got. It's what you got. And at some point, you may live in a shithole, but it's your shithole. And you have to take pride in your shithole. This is the way it is. For better or worse, you have to find something about your situation that you can hook into and live a life with dignity and respect and pride. And hey, you may not like the people that run the restaurant, but that doesn't mean that everybody that works at the restaurant is a bad person. I'm going all over the place here. Do you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Healing Heart Rosie, headed out to vote now. Too big to rig. The steal is real. Christina Jerzik, here we are. We are here. We've made it to the finish line, or the starting line. More like the starting line. Jackie Delario. I voted last week, and it was the longest I ever had to wait to vote. Mostly us senior citizens. Buongiorno, Mr. Jerzyk. Seeger, glory to America. Today is a day of vast creative potential. Now we're talking. Vast creative potential. Ready, hit it. Laura E, morning all. Trash trucks smashed our only car yesterday. Oh no. No one was in the car. Off to call Casella's insurance comp right now. Be right. Well, it's a good thing it was a trash truck because they're insured. And hopefully they're insured for other parties. It was the only car in the parking lot. Well, I guess it was meant to be. Nora Rashid, the queen of speed, is here. Mark was so mad. Of course, it's his lifeline. Of course. We had another semi-tragic accident to report in Chattaria. Lynette Jardine, Mad Maxine, she hit a deer, totaled her car. This is over the weekend. Oh my God, this is the best comment right here. Seeger, they'll let anyone drive a garbage truck these days. It's true, they will, unfortunately. T. Jordan in the house. There she is. The lovely and talented one, saving Austin one tooth at a time. PMSO Janine is here. Julie Sunshine. 333. Big Dave Sullivan's here. Rainbows and butterflies. We got a good house. Athena, Moira, my man Ryan, the introspective woodworker. Yes. Sign up, become a member at the 11th house. I got some nice little holiday. How would I say this? I got some nice little holiday discounts for my peeps over on Rumble, not Rumble, Locals. Coming. Soul Travelers here. Don't forget, please hit the like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Very important. Also, leaving your comments in the comment section, the ones that are there permanently, very important. Drives the algorithm. Let's see. Hey, Bowie. Hey. Deborah R. voted already for PA. Did it early because now in Florida sunshine. I think you could vote there too as well. You may want to give it a shot. Let's see. Rogan's a Libra. Joe Rogan is a Leo. He's a Leo. Joe Rogan is born the exact opposite day of Alex Jones. Joe Rogan's born August 11th. Alex Jones born February 11th. They're opposites. Let's see. Leanne Ott. We got Austin checking in. Malia Donge. You get what you tolerate. There you go. I mean, it's not peak 80s, big hair optimism, but it's still America. It's not like you're living in Chad. You know, that's a really good comment. And the reason why it's such a good comment is because we can look around at all these other countries that are in far worse shape. And it's incumbent upon us, to the best of our ability, to make sure that this country does not go down the same crooked path, which is headed at breakneck speed. Great point, Sigurd. All right. Let's get into the weather. What's the weather look like? Let's see. There she blows. Chart looking a little less complicated, but it is still complicated nonetheless. We have the moon starting the day off at the 29th degree of Sagittarius. At some point during the evening, it will be in Capricorn, in the second house of the U.S. Quite interesting. Am I right? Of course, the sun will be in the U.S. 12th house, where things are always happening behind the scenes on election night. Mercury, since the last time we really spoke, has moved into Sagittarius, where it is in its detriment. However, to not speak truth to power with Mercury in Sagittarius is at your own detriment, because Mercury in Sagittarius must at all costs speak the truth. That's the nature of the moon in Sagittarius. I'm sorry, Mercury in Sagittarius. We also have a Mercury-Pluto sextile early in the day. I would say, well, gee, that's going to uncover some strange irregularities with voting. Come on now, that's already been happening. That has already been happening. This is the big kahuna right here. We knew that Mars was going to be a 0 Leo on election night. 0 Leo. Interesting placement. This is so much different than in 2016 when Trump was elected president in 2016. The day started off, election day started off with Mars at 29 Capricorn. You know, the Sabian symbol where a committee of powerful men make decisions for the world in a secret meeting. I mean, that's really the Sabian symbol of 29 Capricorn, which is where Pluto is. So that symbol is still in effect. On election night in 2016, Mars is at that 29th degree. And so when election day started, it was at Mars is in Aquarius. And I remember having a very brief conversation with the astrologer Samuel Reynolds about the importance of Mars and Aquarius. Mars entered into Aquarius on that day where Trump was announced the winner of the election. And it's funny how astrologers just will poo-poo certain aspects. Like, well, it happens every 2 years. Yeah, well, you're a fucking astrologer. It means something right now. And what I took it to mean during that time and how it actually manifested were very different. So you see, I believe when Mars went into Aquarius on election day, the day that he was elected, so it would be actually the day after, that it would signal a radical departure in Washington. That for me, it was the sign in the heavens that Trump's reign as president was going to be anti-establishment, because that's what Mars in Aquarius would be anti-establishment. And I was right, but wrong at the same time. The anti-establishment factor was the full-on assault and revolt against the Trump presidency from day one. From day one, Mars in Aquarius was radical and was all about revolution and overthrow. And that gets back to the Purple Revolution and the visage of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton together on the day that she conceded with much, much regret, where they donned the color purple. That was Mars in Aquarius. So yes, a radical element was unleashed upon the public. However, it was not coming from the Trump camp. It was coming from his opponents. Now, how does Mars and Leo affect this presidency? It's a very good question. Now, I would assume that it would favor Trump because Mars is masculine and Leo represents royalty. So we have masculine royalty, or the quote unquote king, right? Versus the queen, which would be, say, Venus in Leo, or the moon in Leo. Now, this is Mars in Leo, and it's right at the beginning. The other thing is that both candidates have Mars in the sign of Leo. In fact, their Marses are very close together astrologically. Like they have a Mars-Mars conjunction. Harris has Mars in Leo, Trump has Mars in Leo, and they're both right around the same degree. So here we have Mars in the same sign as both candidates' Mars, but not as far into the ingress. For me, the big transit here is going to be when Mars hits 6 degrees and it goes retrograde. Now, theoretically, the election would not be resolved until Mars, at the very least, returns to 0 Leo, which is where it was. Let me see if I can do this. Hold on. Which is where it was or is today. So you're asking me, well, Robert, when does Mars go to 0 Leo again? I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, dear ones. Mars in Leo returns on the 19th of April. You're saying you got to be kidding me, Robert. You have got to be kidding me. This election won't be resolved until the 19th of April. Yeah, there's some truth to that. There is definitely some truth to that. Now, what's interesting. Right here on the 19th of April, Jupiter is in Gemini, and it is conjunct Trump's Uranus and Sun. So by the time we get down to the end of April, right there, Jupiter offers the greatest potential for expansion. And Trump's Pluto is what, around around 2? Let me just look at the old Trump chart there. Give me 1 second. Let's see. I should know this chart by heart by now. Let's see, where is he? He's not down that low. Paging Donald Trump. Paging Donald Trump's chart. There he is, right there. All right, so Trump's Mars, which is what we're talking about here, or Pluto, 10 degrees, Pluto and Leo. His Mars is at 26. I think Harris is around, what, 24, 25. So they both have Mars and Leo, which I think is interesting in a lot of ways, right? So let's go back to sharing this graphic here. So yeah, Mars and Leo, you would think would favor the male in this election. So we'll go with that. But this tricky part is the Mars retrograde. And that happens when Mars is at 6 degrees of Leo, which is not that far away. So we have Mars retrograding in Leo. On the 7th of December at 6 degrees. The 7th of December. Jupiter is at 16. Now, Jupiter does play a role in tonight's election as well, which I've mentioned before. And whoops, there we go. And it's retrograding back to where Trump's true node was in 2020, where obviously something went askew. So that in and of itself, to me, is an astrological marker that it's the return of Trump. And if you think about this, and I'll talk more about it later on 15 minutes, but if you think about it, in some ways, he has to win. And the reason he has to win is because it is the greatest soap opera ever. The Donald Trump presidency, from start to finish in 2020, in the ensuing 4 years up to now, is the greatest soap opera in American history. Like, this is a Dallas, Dynasty, you name it, all of them. As the World Turns, all of them, Peyton Place, all of them rolled into one, and they still could not hit the soapy operatic quality of the Trump presidency. If Trump goes away, if he loses, and perhaps a portion of the population will be utterly thrilled, so that finally, we'll put this thing to rest and to bed. But I tell you who won't like it. CNN won't like it. MSNBC won't like it. The networks won't like it. The loosh merchants won't like it. So for all those factors alone, Trump should win, because it's the greatest soap opera ever. And why would you want to stop wringing out the drama now? We're just getting started. And by that alone, he should be the rightful winner, because America and the world needs a spectacle. We need a dramatic, an absolute dramatic finish to the sprint of the New World Order. Come on. Do you think we're all just going to take a nap and wake up one day and there'll be chips in our head and be walking around like insect-eating marionettes? Oh, no, there's got to be drama here. And I think Trump provides the biggest opportunity for consistent and ongoing drama. You get drama with Harris, but it won't be the same. It would be more like the daily teeth gnashing of just about everyone who did not vote for, and even some who did. It's inconceivable that somebody could come off less likable than Hillary Clinton. And Kamala Harris pulled off the inconceivable. She did something that no other candidate could ever do, and she achieved that. And it wasn't even close. Not even close. And of course, Trump has his critics, but man, Cackling Cammy, you know, it's a good thing that they waited until the last 3 months to wheel her out. There is absolutely no way. There's no way she could have been in a marathon. Had she started that campaign even 3 months earlier, she'd have blown a gasket. Like that, the image of her right now getting across the finish line. You ever see those like old cartoons, those Hanna-Barbera cartoons or Looney Tunes cartoons, and they have like the old car and it's got like Band-Aids on the radiator and shit. It's got big balloon tires and it's sputtering and lurching and sputtering and lurching. And then finally it gets to where it's going and it like belches out a big cloud of smoke and then it just collapses and then the engine falls apart and the car falls apart and the person driving the car is just sitting there, you know, in the seat holding the steering wheel and there's nothing but like the frame of the car. Everything else is just falling off around it. That's the Harris campaign. That is the Harris campaign. So Mars is a big factor here. And in terms of voting, men make a difference in this vote. Men are the secret weapon in this vote. Doesn't matter. White men, black men, brown men. And I think at the end of the day, if they have a semblance of a reasonable cross-section of who voted, you'll find that men have voted more in this election than in most previous elections. Men got the memo. The memo was Kamala Harris. Could you? I was just imagining Doug Emhoff. First of all, they've got to sleep in separate beds, don't they? There's no way that they can be sleeping in the same bed. Absolutely no way. They have to sleep in separate beds, maybe even separate rooms. There is the potential for a high degree of violence today. I guess if this was a true weather report, I would, and this was rain. We have an 80% chance of violence today. That's coming out of the Northeast. You can see that there is a large storm front coming in from the Northeast. And along with it, a great deal of thunder and lightning. Berman Drong. No, really, you get this Mars-Pluto opposition. And definitely feels like violence is in the air. And we have a very quick inconjunct in the morning with that moon at 29, Sagittarius. So this is people who are being compelled to vote because somewhere deep down inside, whether you believe in the system or the vote or not, they believe that they are about to be put into an even tighter cage than the one that they're currently in. And the subconscious urges of this moon at 29 Sagittarius in conjunct Mars is a highly, highly motivating factor. Venus is creeping up on the galactic center, which is at 25 Sag. And so is Pallas, by the way. And we're moving closer to the theoretical truth. So what is it? 2 degrees per day. So tomorrow will be 23. Let's see, it'll be 22. What is it? 22. Tomorrow's 23. Thursday's 20. Let's see, tomorrow. Friday's 24. So by the time we hit Saturday, that moon will be conjunct by 1 degree of the galactic center. Venus conjunct 1 degree by the galactic center. So by Monday, Venus will be, I believe, at 27 Sagittarius, 1 degree off the galactic center. That'll be an interesting day. Next Monday, circle that day on your calendar. Circle it on your calendar. We're on a quest for truth. Mercury, Pallas, Venus, the moon, all in Sagittarius. The only planet today in Scorpio, of course, is the sun. And as always, the sun playing a role in the election because it shows up in America's 12th house, behind the scenes. Staying with the grand trine theme here, we've got Mars coming in by degree trining Neptune. Mars also trining Mercury in Sagittarius. These are, both Sagittarius and Leo are masculine signs. They're fire signs. Let's throw the true node in there. We'll bring the true node into the grand trine. Fire, fire, fire. Those are all masculine signs. I'm telling you, male energy is playing a huge role today in the election. And I wouldn't be surprised if things got a little chippy out there. And we don't want anybody to get hurt or die unless, of course, they're just completely horrible people, horrible, irredeemable people, in which case it may be better for them to go somewhere else. This is just me being compassionate. That's all. And it's all very subjective. Like somebody's version of a horrible person, irredeemable, may be very different than me. I grant that. But I have a fair amount of, how do I say this, discernment. So I wouldn't make that judgment call for just anybody. No, only those that truly deserve it. We have Saturn here at 12 Pisces. And it is, Mercury's coming into a tighter square with Saturn. And to me, like, this is constipation. Jupiter square Saturn, which we've been witnessing for a while. But Mercury's coming in and squaring Saturn as well. So is Venus. But again, by tomorrow, Venus begins to separate and move away from that square. But the Mercury-Saturn square is not a great aspect in general. All this speed elicited by the explosivity of all these fire planets is to some degree negated by this Mercury-Saturn square, which is slow, slow, and slower. Also, it brings with it a quality of depression. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let me give you an astrological prescription for today and the days to come. Do not allow yourself to fall into depression. Do not. If for whatever reason things go off the charts, and I'll even say this for people who are in the Harris camp, right? This is a universal message. A universal message. Do not fall into the pits of despair and depression. Because with Mars and Mercury and that true node, and even to some extent Neptune, with that grand fire trine, you want to keep your energy up. You want to keep your energy up. The word that I would use today is dauntless. Be dauntless. Whatever the outcome in the immediate, be dauntless. Don't fold like a house of cards. Just be dauntless. In your mind, And look, again, if you're a Harris person, you could use this as well. I don't care. This is an agnostic, for the most part, channel. In your minds and your heart and your action, act as if your side is one. So if you are on Team Trump, act as if he's won. And in spite of whatever the outcome is in the next 12 hours, do not lose hold of that position, because that is the grand trine. And if you're a Harris person, and I'm not sure what Harris people will be listening to this, you could do the same. You could do the same. But since I'm speaking mostly to people that are committed to the truth, and some people, the truth is don't vote for any of them, and that's, that's fine as well. If that's how you feel, I'm not going to judge you. I will not judge you. However, you are still incumbent upon the same spiritual laws, which is that you will hold a space and a place of something positive coming out of all of this. Now, whether or not it's Trump is the president or who knows, the earth splits in two and all the bad people get sucked up and fall into a massive continental sized pit of hell, and then the rest are not, and then the earth magically closes back up again. Where did they go? Oh, pity. They should have brought a flashlight with them. Mars is sextiling Uranus. That's an interesting sextile, isn't it? Especially since Uranus is in Taurus. So this is by degree. There are X factors today. Radical X factors coming into play. At the start of the day, Mars is in the highest position of the chart. So based on that, I do believe that Donald Trump will be the winner of this selection ultimately. And hey, I predicted it last time, and I think that I was right. However, the machinations of man had the audacity, the absolute audacity, to meddle in the business of the stars. And you can't always do that and get away with it. We have a Jupiter-Neptune square today, too. And that, you know what that is? That's just, I'll use a word for this, but in a good way. Stupid hope. Stupid hope. What I mean by that is not that having hope is stupid, but have you ever run across somebody? It's kind of like the person who navigates without a map or navigates without GPS. And they're convinced that they're going in the right direction. And part of that on their part is like hoping it into existence, right? Like, I just hope I'm headed in the right direction. I just hope that this turn that I make will eventually get me to the street or the road that I need to get to in order to quell any of the growing uncomfortable nature of the people, the growing discomfort in the car, right? That's what I mean by stupid hope. The Jupiter Neptune. Oh, we're not lost. I know exactly where we're going. Honey, yeah, I just saw two men back there on the corner with guns. Don't worry about it. They're on our team. They're on our side. They're here to protect us. Honey, one of them was wearing a sickle and a hammer t-shirt. Don't worry. They're undercover. They're really one of us. They're really one of us. There's your Jupiter Neptune square right there. And if you hold on to it long enough, guess what? You might just make the right turn somewhere along the way and get to where you're going. All right. Let's talk about True Hemp Science. Here we go. So this is where we address the star of the day, the True Hemp Science star of the day, and True Hemp Science. As you know, True Hemp Science is the purveyor of some of the best CBD products in the country. In fact, I have an order going off to my son in Arkansas. Thank you, Chris, for that. And all you got to do is go to truehempscience.com. And there's a whole host of products there that you can look at and say, wow, what's this? What's this? What's this? And a lot of it will help you on many different levels. And all you got to do if you want to have your questions answered about any of the products, go to the website, make an appointment, and you can either talk with Chris or his assistant. And if you wind up spending $100 or more, whether you just go through the website or you happen to be on the phone with them, type in 15MINS or let them know you're with Chattaria, because you will get a goodie bag with your order. And the goodie bag is like a mini order. So you're getting a mini order on top of an order. It's great. And you'll get to try things that you may even talk about with Chris. So that's a beautiful thing. It's a blessing. 15MINS, $100 or more. And $150 or more get you free shipping. And there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. TrueHempScience.com. All right. Here is your True Hemp Science star of the day, Jon-Erik Hexum. So some of you may remember Jon-Erik Hexum as a up-and-coming rising star in Hollywood. And his background was he was like kind of like a god. He winds up going eventually, I believe, going to Michigan or Michigan State, one of the Michigan schools. And he walks on as a football player because he'd been lifting weights and working out, and the guy looked like a fucking Adonis, right? So he gets a spot on the football team, and eventually he was discovered. I think he was house painting in John Travolta's house. And John Travolta's manager discovered him and told him, this is after college where he studied acting, you need to move to LA. So he moved to LA and he got a modeling contract. And that's where he started off, obviously, as a male model. And then he started to get roles in TV shows. He was in a Joan Collins, Tawdry Joan Collins TV movie. And then eventually he got a role on the CBS series called The Voyagers. And it is when he's on the set of The Voyagers that Jon-Erik Hexum meets with his demise. So if you look at his chart, let's just take a look at his chart. Everything, this is his chart in the center. Everything is above the horizon. He's got Sun, True Node in Scorpio. This guy was poised to be a huge star. Huge. He could have been a combination of Cary Grant, Tom Selleck, and physique-wise, Sylvester Stallone, all in one. Like, total package, looks, build, whether or not he could act, negligible. But look where his sun and true node are. And Saturn had just hit his midheaven. Now, this day is a particular day. We'll get into why. But everything is above the horizon. He's wired for stardom. The only thing he has below the horizon is his moon in Aries, and it's in the 3rd house. Okay. Now, for me, there's an impulsivity with the moon in Aries in the 3rd house. The moon in Aries is impulsive in general. In the 3rd house, it makes the moon nervous and very, very mutable in a lot of ways. So he has a bucket chart. And the idea is that he has to resolve his moon in Aries for the rest of the chart to really operate and function. Well, doesn't quite do it. And this day that I have here, which is October 12th, 1984 at 8 a.m., this is the day when he is on set and there was a gun with a blank load in it. And Jon-Erik Hexum, I guess he was messing around on the set. He put the gun to his head and he fired it. Now, these guns that are used on set to fire blanks, the blanks are their loads, but they don't travel very far, right? They're suppressed loads, and they only travel at the most 8 or 9 feet. This is what happens with a blank. It doesn't mean that there's nothing in there. There has to be something in there, but it's a suppressed load, and it only travels about 8 or 9 feet. So usually when a gun is fired on a TV show or a movie, there is at least 10 feet in terms of distance between the person firing the gun and the person on the supposedly receiving end of the shot. When Jon-Erik Hexum had that gun with the loaded blank, he put it right to his head. And it had enough velocity to send a 1/4 of an inch chunk of his skull into the center of his brain, where they tried to keep him alive for about 3 days, and he bleeds out and he dies. And what's fascinating about this chart or on this day, a couple things. Pluto had been conjuncting his Mars for a while. So Pluto-Mars conjunctions, not real great. I mean, they can be, they're long-term transits, and if you get through it, you'll be fine. But there's always going to be a high degree of intensity with a Pluto-Mars conjunction. Now, I chose 8 in the morning because usually that's when people get together, they have makeup, right? They think they start fairly early. And if you look at this chart, this would be the ascendant for that time, and Pluto was right on the ascendant. And if I'm right around the time, which I think I probably am, Mars is right there as well, conjunct Pluto, and Mars being on the ascendant of that moment. If you look at Mercury's sun, right, they're right there on top of his Jupiter, which is in Libra, which is opposing his Aries moon. So this is impulsive. The Aries moon is very, very impulsive. So just these factors alone, Mercury, sun on top of Jupiter, taking the elevator down to that moon in Aries. Of course, it's a wound to the head, right? Because he's playing with a gun that has a loaded blank charge. Not real bright. Not real bright. You have Mercury in Scorpio, not a dummy. In his chart, he's got a Mercury square to Uranus in his chart. So again, what is that? That's impulsive. Mercury Uranus squares are impulsive. And then in his 12th house, Jupiter and Mars, right? Conjuncting Venus. This is the outdoor right here. That's the outdoor. So I'm sure this was incredibly tragic for his family and people who knew him because he was very, very young. He wasn't even 30 years old. Hadn't gotten to his Saturn return. That would have happened in 1987. So I guess he's part of the 27 Club. I'll never forget, there was a guy who I saw on one of these daytime talk shows, and they were talking about the whole show was about receiving organs from organ transplants, right? Donors. And one of the guys that they had on the show had gotten an organ from Jon-Erik Hexum. Now, could just think about it? I remember this guy being somewhere, I don't know, maybe in his early 50s. That's what he looked like. And he gets, I don't know, a kidney from Jon-Erik Hexum. Let's say he got his kidney or a liver. Let's say he's got his liver. Now, all of a sudden, Jon-Erik Hexum is living inside this guy. And Jon-Erik Hexum is a Chad. He's the definition of a Chad. And all of a sudden, this 50-year-old guy probably is strutting around like he's a Chad. It would have been interesting to see how this guy's life unfolded. Because he knew where he got his, I think it was his liver. He got it from Jon-Erik Hexum. And Jon-Erik Hexum was a prime candidate for organ transplantation, right? He has a wound to the head, so he's going to be brain dead. Everything else in his body is working just fine. Now, me, myself, and I'm really not into having my organs shared. So I have specifically stated that I don't want that. You have to be very on the ball with it, or else they'll snatch it, right? They'll snatch your organs or your loved one's organs. You have to be really beyond it if that means something to you. So again, when you look at his chart, you can see his demise in his chart, especially if this has happened around 8 a.m., which I believe it did. And he's got Pluto right there. Pluto was on the ascendant at that time, and it conjuncted his Mars, and his Mars would have been very close to the ascendant. Of course, Mars is also ruled by Aries, although in this case it is detriment in Libra. So he's having this very intense Pluto-Mars moment. And the impulsive Mercury, Sun, Jupiter opposition to his moon. So if there was a day that he did not need to put that revolver, that blank revolver to his head, this was the day. And some people will say, well, astrology is the science of fate. Was he supposed to pick up that gun that day, put it to his head? The other thing, I'm going to bring this up. The other thing that he might have been dealing with was very intense shame, right? Very intense shame. He has Chiron, transiting Chiron in Gemini down here. 5th house, which has to do with things like acting, creative performance, opposing Saturn in his chart, and then Uranus conjuncting his natal Saturn. And I wonder what Jon-Erik Hexum had to do to get those parts. It's the age-old question. And what we know about Hollywood and have known for years now is that most people who are famous and get consistent roles do so because they're compromised. They rolled over. And I'm just wondering if subconsciously that's what he was dealing with. Was he dealing with some level or degree of shame, which in that moment forced that gun to his head, pretending like he's in the deer hunter, and then becoming an organ farm for at least a dozen people? It's an interesting question. My spidey senses say yes. And sometimes things that on the surface look like a homicide, or in this case, a self-inflicted gunshot wound as a prank, have much deeper roots in the psyche. And something else is driving the projectile forward, let's say. All right. That's it. I'm going to leave you on an up note. How about that? Get out there, live your best life. Whatever happens, however this goes down, it does not define who you are on both sides, by the way. Even if your guy wins, it doesn't define who you are. Who you are is bigger than the entire electoral process in and of itself. Just remember that. You remember that, and you'll get through this. You'll hold your head high, and if you are invested in the correct posture or attitude for a win for your candidate, whomever your candidate is, act as if it's already happened. And do not deviate from the path. All right. Thanks for being here. Oh, tonight we're going to have a special show over on Rumble. And I'm going to go live at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time and probably go to about midnight. Who knows? Maybe later. And I'll have some guests on the show. At 6 p.m., I'll be joined by our friend Drake, the young conservative from San Antonio. He'll be with us for an hour in the 6 o'clock hour. Somewhere in there, quite frankly, is dropping by for a cameo appearance. Some of you may remember Mark Malone, who at one point in time was rapidly becoming a political superstar in this country. This will be Mark's first video appearance since the passing of his dearly departed wife, Jillian, which was a year ago last Saturday. So Mark's going to join us. And then as we move deep into the night, the Leo King himself will join us from about 10 p.m. on, 10 p.m. Central on. So taking us into the dark of the night, it'll be myself and the Leo King. Join us. It'll be great. We'll commiserate. We'll laugh. We'll tell jokes. On this, I'll probably eat some barbecue too. So that's going to be over on Rumble, 4 p.m. starting tonight. All right. Check us out over on 15. I'm out of here. Take care. Have yourself a very blessed day. And bye for now.